emphasize enough how important vocabulary is. And when I say vocabulary here, I don't mean to have a fancy vocabulary like at school, you know, and you have to get the spelling and spelling bee and all this nonsense. No, no, and nothing to do with that. It's simply which words we use and how we use them. For instance, when we did the show yesterday with Matt, right, we talked about the word label, right? Labels. What do labels mean? Now, in general, it's become, you know, sort of popular, common vibe, and that labeling is a negative. Oh, don't label me. I don't want to be labeled. But in the same way as you can do it negatively, you can also do it positively. See, so now we've shifted here. This is what I mean by vocabulary. If you are going to have this a word like label in your vocabulary, be aware of what it means to you and understand that most words are not inherently negative. They like labeling, right? It's simply that people misuse the labeling and they do it in such a way as to limit and put down people, gain superiority, etc. The word itself isn't negative. In fact, it's a very positive word when used appropriately. Well, because if we were to stop labeling, we'd stop speaking, right? Stop thinking. Because all of it, all of our conceptions, all of our understanding, everything is labeling, right? So this is what I mean by vocabulary. So now for me, and what I'm advocating with capital V vocabulary, when you add labeling in there, you say, I understand it's somewhat commonly become to be associated with negativity, but this is only a partial understanding. It's not the entirety of it. And what I'm going to do in my own vocabulary is to understand the full power of labeling, right? And so I'm going to continue from Matt's show yesterday, because this is the core topic. You know, the alternate name for way of impeccability is the language of conceptuality. Conceptuality is labeling taken to its most sophisticated level, right? So now we say, I can use labeling. Let's understand labeling a little bit more. What is labeling? How does it work? What makes it good? And this is what applies to all vocabulary. So when I'm saying labeling and vocabulary is kind of the same thing. All vocabulary is labeling in a way. Not in a way, is vocabulary, is labeling. However, it's also more. Both vocabulary and labeling is also sorting, organizing, categorizing, and most critically, vocabulary, when appropriately used, as in labeling, right? When you say labeling, we're also talking about tagging, hashtagging, same thing, right? When you're putting, like when you make up a website, it says put your labels. What are those labels? They tags, right? And they tell you what items or what this your blog post, right? You do a blog post, you put the labels at the bottom. Those labels give you a very quick overview of all of the key elements that are contained within that article. Yes. So now in your brain, what happens with those labels? It's associated with the prime important content of that particular article, right? Or when we label a person, we say, okay, a mom, a doctor, thoughtful, careful, considerate, nice, joyful, attentive, all labels that I would apply to you guys, right? Wonderful people, joyful, fun, paying attention, wants to learn and grow, right? So all of those are labels which enable me to have this idea of who or what you are. Now, of course, when we misuse labeling, we use labels that are too narrow, too small, that don't fit enough. But when I say you are a joyful person, I'm not saying you're only a joyful person. That would be limiting. See, but when I got multiple labels, thoughtful, intelligent, careful, considerate, um, caring, attentive, etc., right? Interested in learning and growing, or an aspirant. An aspirant. Wow, what a label that is. What all do you aspire to? Does anybody want to know? If so, say yes, and I'll share a post I made a long time ago about what I aspired to. I made it when I was in high school. Anyway, so these are all labels that allows me to to know and have an idea of something. But in our vocabulary, we don't want to get stuck in narrow, confining labels. Oh, Ramsey does want to know. All right, Ramsey, I shall share in a moment. So this is very powerful. So this, and yesterday on the show, if you remember, I changed my name over here, where it says underneath me, it says Saul Sebastian, #Way of Impeccability. But I changed it to Aspirant Saul Sebastian, because I do consider myself an aspirant. I'm a lifelong aspirant. But now you ask, well, but Saul, what do you aspire to? Now I'm going to share what I aspire to, right? And this is something that I still do, I still aspire to, and it's been my whole life, right? Uh, since a teenager. I mean, I just wrote it down towards the end of being a teenager. Oh, this is not where I need to be. There we go. And so here we go, right? What I aspire to. This is the title of this. Rapture, elation, bliss, exaltation, awe, wonder, reverence, grace, harmony, joy, impeccability, of course, energy, vitality, sobriety, connectedness, fluidity, nobleness, evolution, spirit, freedom, awareness, insight, silent knowledge, transcendence, and appropriateness. Universal. Now, my friend scolded me. My one friend said, no, can't put universal there. Appropriateness is always universal. And I said, yes, Mark. He's an awesome, he's the inspiration for Camellias. So I said, yes, it is rather obvious. But I put it there as just a reminder that appropriateness, of course, it inherently means in its fullness, capital A appropriateness, means it's always universal. It's in all context, in all time frames. Yes. And this is a nice indication of me. Yes. Yeah. Determined, and yet also, knowing that learning is needed. Yeah. So that's what I aspire to, right? Very powerful, very important. And the key here is, you see these first ones. When I read this to my friend Mark, by the way, he swore at me. Say, what? How can he be swearing at you? Yeah. You know why he swore at me? Because he says, who the hell are you to have a list of aspirations like that? Hello, Lindsay. He says, where do you come on this? He was a bit outraged. Now, of course, he was reacting because it took him by surprise. It was a shock for him when he saw this, when I shared this list of aspirations. He said, I never even thought of any of these. Well, so this is the power of thinking things through to the end. When you take aspiration and say, I aspire, well, think it through to the end. And the only way you can come up when you think with things through to the end, you're going to end up with a list of superlatives, which is exactly what that list is. It's a list of superlatives, right? And it illustrates the power of vocabulary. He never even considered that he was entitled or enabled, or that it was an option for him to aspire to things like rapture and bliss. See, I never even thought that I'm sort of like I could do it. Never mind even being worthy. There is no worthiness involved. Why not? If you want to, why can't you aspire to it? So this is a great example of the power of vocabulary, right? Right there, that's a list of vocabulary, a list of labels. All right, labels, in this case, they're more concepts than labels, which is where we want to go with this, right? Because our topic is vocabulary and power conceptions. So that's going beyond vocabulary. Those are all power conceptions, right? To aspire to appropriateness, to aspire to vitality, to aspire to impeccability. Impeccability is a power conception, right? Likewise, those, awe, rapture, bliss, elation, all of those, because they're superlatives, they become power conceptions, right? It's one thing to just be happy, but to have bliss, that's quite another thing. To have elation, to have rapture, this is quite another thing, yes? So this is super, super, super powerful. Yeah, exactly. Words sometimes have more power than actions because it's a conception. And this is what I really am making the effort to illustrate here, Ramsey. When we go words, that's vocabulary. But a power conception, this is more than just even a regular conception, right? Now, what is a conception? First of all, to conceive is much like when we conceive and you're making children, right? This is an act of creation, right? But it's more than just like when you make something, like if you're an artist or a builder or an engineer or something. To conceive also means that you are putting some thoughtfulness into it, some idea, yes? So a conception is more than just a creative action. It is also a creative thoughtfulness. When we conceive, we have to say, what is this comprised of? What does it mean? What is its purpose? What is its intent? Etc., etc. So a conception is a profound action. And this word conceive, when applied to making children, it says you aren't just making another being. You're not like in a factory when you're making it. No, a conception, it's a conceiving, which means you are going in there. Yourness, your moreness, your ness is going in there. Your you-ness, right? And when you conceive and you do so thoughtfully and powerfully, you're putting your intent into this being. Now, when we conceive of a conception, the same thing, right? We can't just do it blindly. We have to put that deepness in there, that moreness. What does this mean to me? How is it meaningful? How is it purposeful? How is it significant? How is it important? This is all absolutely critical. So a power conception is not something lightly come by. Like that list, this is a massive list of power. Yes, this is valuable. And this is something I live by. This is what I pursue. This is what keeps me going. This is what matters to me. This is what gives me joy in the world. Yes. I'll go over that list a bit later again, because it's an easy list to say, what was on that list again? Because it's so much, it kind of overwhelms the brain a bit. I mean, I spent a ton of time thinking about that. Yes. I mean, this was the result of a decade-long worth of everyday energy, focus, yeah, and tuning. All right. Yes, I came out of the box different. That's all I can say, people. Don't ask me how come and why. I just started life different. Like it's like I started where I was continuing on from some previous life. I don't know. That's the only thing that makes sense. But here's the point, though, right? So when we look at this about power conceptions, these are tools to change your life. Profound, profound, profound tools that will really, really change your life. These power conceptions, they make a difference. They aren't just some fun idea. They aren't like a new age idea, spiritual. Oh, that sounds good. Okay, I'm going to go and do it, whatever. Yeah, no. And, you do it because it makes you look cool, or you feel cool, or you feel spiritual. No, these actually matter. Yes. So me as an aspirant, that's what I aspire to. So before I go any further here, let me ask you, right? Norma, Ramsey, Lindsay, whoever is here, please pop a few of your aspirations into chat. Yeah, just write down a few power conceptions, things that you aspire to. Norma, what do you aspire to? I have a guess what Norma's going to say. Not just that you aspire to it. Now remember, to aspire to something doesn't mean it's out there in the distance in the future. If I aspire to something, I can also be attaining it, yes, and aspire to have more of it, to continue to connect to it, right? So my aspiration isn't only the acquisition, but the maintenance, the continued connectivity, yeah? So Ramsey, what do you aspire to? Lindsay, what do you aspire to? And multiples, right? When we ask a question like this, our brains, through our school training and cultural conditioning, we tend to say, oh, like one aspiration. No. There we go. Always aspire to improve. Exactly. And Norma, I would also say you are constantly aspiring to love, because you constantly make this effort to love, to share love, to connect to love, to be involved with love, to spread love. So love is a major aspiration from you. It is an enacted aspiration, much like improving is an enacted aspiration. So for us, at least from a way of impeccability point of view, and as a power conception, when we say aspire, we don't just mean like we're on a path going somewhere. right? So our aspirations aren't destinations. No, our aspirations are the path itself. They are the journey, right? Like love. We engage in love, we do love, we enjoy love. At the same time, we are also looking and making an effort to connect to more love, to spread love, to go deeper into love, to understand love more, right? Yeah, it's easier to love than to improve, says Norma. Yes, Norma, it is. It is. It is. It is. It is. Improving is a big deal and it's difficult. Why? Or can be. Why? Because we can be stubborn and we get stuck. What keeps us stuck? Habit. It's the core of way of impeccability. It's the core understanding of way of impeccability. So, Ramsey, no aspirations from you. Lindsay, are you still here? No aspirations from you? Nothing? Or are you making a long list? Maybe I just need to be patient and wait. But yes, with improving Norma, because also the other thing that makes, there we go, positivity, fluidity, optimism, says Ramsey, blissfulness, yes, focus, self-control, and deep meditation. Yes, it's wonderful. It's just so cool. Positivity. It just makes me think now. I don't remember having it on my list, but unrelenting positivity. Never mind just regular positivity, Ramsey, but for me, unrelenting positivity has not only been an aspiration, but an ongoing application in my life, right? This all started back in the 70s. Now, back in the 70s in where I lived, psychoanalysis, yes, it had been around for a while, but it was starting to be something that you could actually talk about in society, right? Before that, if you went to psychoanalysis, nobody knew about it. It was a big secret thing. It was like Tony Soprano. Nobody could know about it. Your life would end if anybody knew. But it started to become a bit more socially acceptable. Now, when I say a bit more, it still had some stigma to some people attached. Like even today, there's very few, but occasionally you'll find people who think it's, oh, I'm not crazy, I don't need to go. Well, okay. Anyway, so with psychoanalysis starting to become the popular psychology, this is when popular psychology really started and took off. And words like psychoanalysis became part of everyday language, not just for psychologists and doctors and scientists and so on. And part of this is, of course, and the value of this, it started to bring, since we are talking about terms and labels and vocabulary and power conceptions, it brought into the general vocabulary terms and words like depression. Now you might say, wow, what do you mean? Depression, was that not like a common term? No. When I grew up as a young child now, right, before this was kind of in my teenage years when this started, right, when I was very young, depression was not a word used. I might have gone, I don't know, maybe I can't remember when I first heard the term, but at least 10 years, I would imagine, without hearing this term, right? Or something like that, right? My point is it just was not part of common discussion. And as a result, it was not an idea in people's heads. Oh, what's wrong with him? Oh, he's just feeling a bit down or something, right? This concept of depression was just lacking from the community that I lived in. So as these terms started to come in, people's awarenesses were broadened. Now, so when I first heard this term depression, and I, understood, got to know what it was about, this was quite a big deal because now I'm aware of something that could be a possibility in my life. Now, you could, of course, become depressed without having this word depression in your mind. Yeah. And this is very powerful to be aware that, but then you can be a bit lost. And now you're feeling something, experiencing something, and you have no way of relating to it, connecting to it. You don't know what it is. And that adds to the confusion. And in the case of depression, it adds to it. But there's also the flip side, right? So labeling terms, vocabulary, conceptions are powerful in both directions as something to avoid, or it says, oh, this is something that you could have, you could experience. Even worse, and I saw this with people, this is something you should have. That's why should is one of the worst words out there, worst ideas, worst concepts. well, if this and this and this, like if you lose your job, you break up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, whatever, oh, you should be depressed. Nonsense. At least some people think that, right? So they end up being depressed simply because they think they're supposed to be. Ugh, 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 ugh. So we have to really, really be careful of this. Nonetheless, so I considered this thing with depression. And when I really thought about it, I said, all right, when I think it through to the end, well, what makes us depressed is having a negative view of the world, not just of the world, but particularly of the future. Yes, we are depressed when we don't think there is a positivity going forward, right? That we assume, we believe, we're convinced that there's no hope for the negativity of the moment, and it's just getting worse, or it's not going to improve going further. So depression is very intimately linked to hopelessness, or the belief that there is no possible solution. When we believe there is a solution, but I can't find it, well, then I still keep going. I know it's out there somewhere, I'll keep going. But when I believe there's no possible solution, that's when I get depressed. So, hey, Cheryl, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Cheryl is here. Wonderful, wonderful. Good morning, Cheryl. Cheryl, you're welcome to come and join me on Zoom, by the way, if you want to. You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. For that matter, of course, so is Lindsay, so is Norma, so is Ramsey. You're all welcome to come join me on Zoom. Just say if you want to. Cheryl, you already have the link, of course, but I'll send you guys the link. No problem. Anyway, so Cheryl, have you been here for a little while? Do I need to recap? But no, you catch up. Okay. So I'm talking about this concept, this term, depression, and how it made a difference and how it relates to unrelenting positivity. That's where I'm going, Ramsey. I haven't forgotten my connectivity. I'm making a bit of a detour. So I considered this idea, this concept of depression, and I thought it through like I'm doing now. Okay, yes, it's when you see hopelessness, you can't see resolution, you don't believe there's a possibility of resolution. And so this is, so I realized too that brilliant. Hey, Gabriel. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Hello from Ecuador. Marvelous, marvelous. So I'm continuing, Gabriel, on labeling, because this is actually last week already. We were doing as part of my live series here on the Freedom from Anxiety and Worry course. Oh, brilliant. I'm going to come back to you in a second, Lindsay. Gabriel, I've been for the last 2-3 weeks already, maybe more even. We've been focused on a part of the course that deals with vocabulary and power conceptions. Now, of course, labeling is a particular usage of vocabulary, and it's a very limited usage of power conceptions. So I'm going into depth on this a bit. And I'm talking about, well, I was asking what, I said yesterday, I called myself Aspirant Phil Sebastian. What does it mean to be an aspirant? So I shared my list of aspirations, and I'll share them again a bit later. Bean is here too. Wonderful, wonderful, absolute magic. So in this, I'm saying now, positivity. Ramsey said one of his aspirations, positivity. And I was saying, for me, was unrelenting positivity. And why? Why is this such an important aspiration? Because it's connected to depression for me. When I really got into this term, this label of depression, and thought about it, I saw how people could get depressed. And I watched people. I was a social scientist well, still am, but particularly I made very specific studies as a child. I still do, actually. Anyway, so I watched people, and they got this idea of being a bit down. And then they started thinking about it, started feeling it, and it started to feed on itself. And it became this vicious circle. I actually called it slippery slope then. That was the term that was for me. I became acutely aware that depression is a slippery slope. The key with a slippery slope, and I hope that all of you have had this actual physical experience to stand like on a jetty or a slipway or something, and you're going towards the water on that slope that goes down, right? They take boats into water, right? And you get to that part where your foot is on the slipperiness of the slope, like where the moss is under the water, right? Or if the water's like the tide is low, the slipperiness might even be above the water. But nonetheless, you're standing on a slope, right? As you're going down the slope, when your foot gets your front foot touches on that slipperiness, especially if you're going carefully, in that moment, you're still stable, but you can feel how uncertain things are. Yeah. You know that if I take that second step onto the slippery slope, I'm going to slip and slide and fall, and you slide all the way down into the water, right? So this is a really powerful understanding when your body knows this, because this is the key with depression. When you start to feel this, that first little tiny indication, when you've only got 1 foot into feeling low and down and negative, that's when you've got to stop, turn around, lift that foot up very carefully, and walk away out of there, right? That's when you need to catch depression. And for me, to avoid even putting that 1 foot on that slippery slope of negativity, depression, all of the stuff, right? That was where unrelenting positivity came from. If I'm unrelentingly positive, that means I'm positive all the time. And to me, it became a matter of survival, because I knew I have an immersive psychology. I get really into stuff. So if I get into feeling down, it's just going to suck me in, right? It's going to feed on itself, and the next thing, it's all over. And once you're in it, it's kind of too late, because now you don't have the energy, the feeling, the motivation. That's the real horror of depression. It kills your motivation. You don't feel like making an effort to get out of the depression. So you're just stuck there. You're just looping around, right? This is its real horror. So to avoid this, unrelenting positivity. And to come back to my theme here, it's about this conception of the slippery slope. The conception, understanding exactly what depression is, how it works, understanding immersion, right? They all work together. This is the magic of conceptions, as part of Way of Impeccability, as some of you know, right? We have all of this, we call it the Dictionary of Power, which is obviously a list of your power conceptions. As you start to go along and you build your Dictionary of Power, at some point, every participant has said, oh my God, I see how it all connects now. And this is a big, huge, massive moment. Right, Bina? Right, Cheryl? This was a huge moment of this connectivity, this interconnectivity, seeing how all these conceptions link together. Like yeah, slippery slope, immersion and depression, futility, lack of motivation, all connect together. When you understand the danger of depression, you understand that it's linked to immersiveness. It's linked to this hopelessness. It's linked particularly to lack of motivation. And this is massive when you see all of these things being connected, right? I'm going to come back to your comment in a second, Ramsey. I want to say, so Lindsay says her aspirations, and Gabriel and Bina and Cheryl, I asked earlier, right? Because we're talking about vocabulary and power conceptions, I said, I shared a list of my aspirations that I made long time ago, and I'll share it again in a moment. But I want to ask you before I share, please, if you wouldn't mind, pop into chat there, you guys, all of you, share a few of your aspirations. Like Lindsay says, art, inspire, be inspired, love. So art, inspiration, love. Yeah, Lindsay aspires to art. She aspires to inspire and be inspired, and she aspires to love. This aspiration to inspire and to be inspired, this is a profound inspiration, Lindsay, because if you're going to aspire to art and to love, how can you not also aspire to be inspired? Yes, and to inspire. If I love somebody, how can I not aspire to inspire them? Because if I'm inspiring them, I'm adding to them. This is a profound act of love, right? I can't necessarily do things for someone I love, because that presumes that I know what they want. And this is a big presumption, and this is what causes trouble in most relationships. But to inspire, this is free, right? I'm exuding something that's inspirational to somebody else. They can take it or leave it. This is free. This is to me, it is a profound free love. Yes. Very powerful conception there. Very powerful. I add inspiration to my list, Lindsay. That's very powerful. So, all right, while we wait for some more of those aspirations to be shared, and you know what you aspire to, right? So give us a couple there, as many as you feel free to share. And Ramsey says, I learned when being overwhelmed to be positive all the time and not fall into depression by saying to myself, let me try to work out things for one more day, and saying it to myself every day. Exactly. This is unrelenting positivity. And Gabriel shares, indeed, the depression is a down-regulated energy and dangerous. Exactly. Exactly. And this says, please raise your vibrations with inspiration. I aspire to sustain my vibes elevated daily by practicing mental alchemy. Exactly so. Now, you bring up a wonderful, since we're talking about vocabulary and conceptions, mental alchemy. What a fabulous power conception. Now in way of impeccability, we would capitalize that and hyphenate it because it's a concept and it's an emphasized important concept. It means more to us. So when you write it as mental alchemy, right, let me do that. Let me put it here. Just to illustrate, right? No, just take that back. There we go. Okay, so if we look at mental alchemy, right, Gabriel, in the difference when it's written in the way I just wrote it there, oh, immediately my brain says, wow, well, it's capitalized, got the hyphen. Now it's a conception, and by the fact that it's put together like this and with the capitals, means more. There's more to this concept, right? I love this conception in the context of what we're talking about. Because mental alchemy, what is alchemy? Alchemy is the transmutation of substance, taking one thing, transforming it into another. And your mind, mentally, here comes Cheryl, brilliant. Your mind is what? It is all chemicals in there. It's chemical soup. And what we do when we conceive, we take those chemicals and through emphasis, we literally change them into something else. So when we conceive of something and we create a power conception, because we're taking all of these various elements and we're putting them into something that is cohesive, right? And we're adding it together, we say, oh my goodness, I'm actually performing alchemy. Literally, mental alchemy is a literal thing. With emphasis, you literally change your brain. And when we have a conception which we emphasize, we are now taking that change and we're spreading it, we're connecting it throughout the entire brain. In other words, we change who we are, how we live, how we relate, how we connect, how we motivate. We change everything. Hello, Cheryl. You here? Where are you?
Hello.
Brilliant. There's you. I'm not seeing you. Just there you come now. All right, it's a little delay. I was watching it on live. So wonderful, Cheryl. Wonderful. So think about this, right? This concept of mental alchemy. This is a power conception, which I love it. It's really awesome, and I'll add it to my dictionary of power. But I mean, it's something that this is what mental alchemy. This is what power conception means to me. It's the same term. Power conception is mental alchemy. And to aspire to mental alchemy, this is what we do, right, Cheryl? When we do Way of Impeccability, don't we perform mental alchemy? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Bina says, hi, and nice to see you, Cheryl. Or hey, nice to see you, Cheryl, says Bina.
Thank you,
Yes,
Bina.
it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right. So, Cheryl, I'm just going to pull you right in the deep end here. Share a couple of your aspirations. What do you aspire to, Cheryl? What do you aspire to? You aspire to cool?
I would say my aspiration, first and foremost, is trust, self-trust, trust that what is meant for me will be mine. I aspire to think things through and to pause, to be less reactive and just more engaged into my world instead of reacting to it.
And this is key.
Self-trust has always been, something I almost forget to do.
Yes. Yeah. So I really highly recommend. I mean, to me, it's almost it's so critical that you take your aspirations, write them down, and make a list. And if you forget them, write them down. Make, like Cheryl, can you show us that calligraphy thing that you did, that you wrote? You wrote something. Didn't you write something pretty in calligraphy somewhere and put it up on your wall? Or was that the poem? Oh, all right. Anyway, so make
I don't know if
something that
can
you.
see it.
Oh, let me see. Let me see. We'll see in a moment. Yeah. There we go. Look at this. Look at this. You see? See, aspirations, right? Look how beautiful this is. Too awesome, Cheryl. Too absolutely brilliant. Exactly. This is what I wanted you to show, right? So what is this? This is a mechanism for performing brain alchemy, right? This is Cheryl taking her power conceptions, mood management, energy, right? All of it. You read them there. I can't read so well.
Well, I start with the energy management, which
Exactly.
was a struggle point for me because I was expelling energy and having nothing left for some really important energies needed in my life.
Yeah.
So I had to manage that better.
Yes.
Through habit management.
Critical.
My awareness management.
Critical.
And then where I was going to, emphasis equals energy. So I had to manage where my emphasis was going to go.
Exactly. That's why I'm so pleased you've come on, because that's what you made there. It is absolutely just so perfect to illustrate everything we're talking about, right? These are labels that have been taken way past any labeling stage, right? So these are power conceptions, which are like power labeling, right? And it's all connected, and it's meaningful to you. And because it's meaningful to you, because they are conceptions, not just words. It's very important to understand the difference between a conception and a word, right? Because they're conceptions, which means they are connected, they're live, they're extended, they mean, there's a lot to them. Energy management, man, I mean, I can go on for I don't know how long, weeks on this, right? Mood management, habit management, these are all profound, life-changing and self-changing conceptions. Now,
and
what
energy
Cheryl did,
management is pivotal in getting you on your journey and getting you on your way.
Exactly. And look what Cheryl did, right? She did it so beautifully. She wrote it out. She made it into a work of art. Now, Lindsay, look at the inspiration of this. Yes, this is inspiring, not just for Cheryl, but for us too. Yeah, it's just too gorgeous. It's too beautiful. I'm going to come back to all your comments. There's a lot of wonderful stuff going on here. So I was busy saying what Cheryl did. I absolutely recommend everyone do with their aspiration terms, right? And spend some time. Let those aspiration terms, let them brew, let them bubble. Because initially you're gonna write down a few, and then more will come, and then more will come, and then more will come, and then make a poster like this, make a work of art like this. Now, if you say, "Well, I can't draw, I can't write," doesn't matter. You can use computer programs to do it for you. That's really easy. Any fancy, like a Word, even your word processor, you can use a fancy script, and then you can make it, you can rotate it and put it into different angles, whatever. You can make it pretty. It doesn't take much, but it's worth the effort. Just put it in different colors. It's very easy. You don't need to have hand drawing skills to do this, right? So this is incredibly powerful, right? So Norma, yes, the energy part of it is absolutely critical. This is way of impeccability, best use of energy. So, Gabriel says knowing how to self-regulate one's energetic flow is so important to mental alchemy. Exactly. It's all about, what are we talking here? Mood management, energy management. Well, energy management to start, but then you go from energy management to mood management and habit management. That is regulating, that is managing your energy. That's exactly what it's all about. So habit management is a very particular energy management. Why? Because habits are unawareness behaviors that just happen of their own accord, right? Unintended unawareness. That's what a habit is. So holy moly, that's really critical. So if we want to make sure that we are able to connect to our aspirations, we need the energy. Forget if you say, okay, like on my aspirations, I had the elation, rapture, bliss, which are superlatives of joy and happiness. You don't have energy, you can forget about getting there, right? If you want to be impeccable, takes energy. If you want to be appropriate, takes energy. Every single thing takes energy. So everything starts with energy management. Energy, this is why impeccability means energy management, best use of management, right? Isn't that right, Cheryl?
Absolutely. For
Uh,
me, it started because I was once with a job that when I was given an impossible task.
uh,
And
yeah,
the type A personality in me said, oh,
yeah,
well, if you think I can do it, I can do it.
yeah,
And what was
yeah,
happening was I was laying it all out there and I would come home for time for me,
yeah.
but there'd be no energy for that.
Exactly, exactly.
And
And
I had to set up my own energy boundaries
yes, exactly, exactly. I
because
had,
what I was leaving out was
yeah,
so important to my journey.
exactly, exactly. And look what Cheryl says here, right? Cheryl says, I had to set up my own boundaries.
Right.
Uh, That's a very profound statement. You say, well, you know what? Yeah, yeah. And on the surface, it might not sound really profound and important, but how many of us do not make that deliberate, careful effort to set up your own boundaries? You just take the boundaries, whatever boundaries have you've acquired that have been put onto you, maybe, right? That just came about for whatever reason. But who says those are actually where your boundaries are? Right. So this is very important. Like Cheryl's boundaries are very porous, and they were very close in, and boundaries are being trampled all the time. Right. The hooligans were just streaming over your boundaries, going willy nilly, and so who
Yes.
cares about Cheryl's
Yes.
boundaries? It's like, well, Cheryl
Yes.
doesn't care about her boundaries. Why should we?
You are surrounded by those who will take as much as they can get from you.
Exactly.
And it's up to
Exactly.
you to say, okay, I've
Exactly.
given you what I
Exactly.
have assigned to you, and
Exactly.
that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Energy is a precious commodity.
it
If you
sure
want to
is.
understand life, right, simply understand it as the utilization of energy, right? And free energy in nature is always pounced upon by everything. Yes. So an example of this, right? They found a new form of life, not the typical carbon life that we normally have. It's at the bottom of the ocean, right? So we have alternative life forms on this planet already. Yes, people talk about aliens; they exist, and where did they find them? At the very deep bottom of the oceans, where those hot water vents from the volcanic stuff underneath came out into the ocean, right? So where those vents came out, why was there life there? Because you had the elements of it in the ocean already, the raw materials, but you get a free energy source. So even in this most inhospitable of places, life formed. Why? Because it had a free energy source. Why do we have life on Earth? Because we get free energy from the sun. That's it. Very simple, right? So when we understand that if you are going to be giving out free energy, right, people are going to use it. We are built this
Right.
way.
Of
This
course
is
they
this
will.
is just. It's not that they're being manipulative or exploitive, right? No, this is just how we are. If you're going to give it away for free, I need to use it. This makes sense to me. So be careful how you give out your energy. I'm not saying don't give any energy out, because this is part of love, joy, inspiration, all of the things that we aspire to, right, come from some form of energy exchange. But make
Right.
sure that you don't just give your energy, that you invest your energy. You're welcome to my energy, but you know what? I want something back on it. It's not a contract, but I want to make sure you're getting value from it. I don't have to personally get something out of it other than to see that you're utilizing it well. And I don't want just anybody. If you're full of nonsense, sorry, leave my energy alone. This is not for you, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's not a direct contract, but there is a relationship between it. So make sure you use your energy well, and you share your energy well, and you give out your energy well, right? So that you do benefit from it. So, all right,
Phil,
Norma,
I
no problem.
I saw something a little bit funny the other day. It said, sometimes I feel like the world is saying to me, gee, I love your energy. Wait here while I grab a straw.
Exactly. Wow. Wow. Wow.
And
Wow.
I
Wow.
think to myself, sometimes I feel that being said. So don't let them get their straw.
Yes. So I want to touch on something that Gabriel says here. Since our theme is vocabulary and power conceptions, right? So energy work. This is a conception that's out there. It's a label. It's a term. Now, what I do is also energy work, but not in the way that mostly energy work people think Reiki and body and seances or God knows what all. They have all sorts of wild ideas about energy work, right? Holding your hands, whatever. Conceptions, what we are doing now is energy work. Because when you can have your vocabulary connected to conceptions, in other words, have a vocabulary, your personal vocabulary includes these power conceptions. It includes the power conceptions, which are your aspirations, your intents. This is you managing your mental energy, your psychological energy, your motivational energy. If I know what it is that I want to do, and this is why Wave Impeccability starts with clarity of intent. If I know exactly what I want to do, what I intend, what I aspire to, I now utilize my energy more efficiently and more effectively, right? This is energy work. You are sorting your emotionality, you are sorting your psychology, you are sorting your mentality. Everything starts to fall into place. So vocabulary is so intrinsic to us. It is how we learn, how we think, how we are. It is intimately connected to us. Our brains are so evolved already with vocabulary. We can't unhook from it. But we have to understand there's vocabulary, little v vocabulary and capital V vocabulary. That's why we call the dictionary of power, which is the list of your power conceptions. It's called not just a dictionary, it's a dictionary of power. These conceptions of power, they change your life. To think of yourself in a particular way, it's power. To know what you want, what you aspire to, in other words, what's important to you, what's meaningful to you, what's significant to you, right? Meaningful, purposeful, significant, MPS. When you know that, you get a different MPS. You get magic per second or moreness per second. Yes, MPS, very powerful term, right? Very powerful acronym there for, meaning, purpose, significance, or magic per second, moreness per second. And all works together. And it's the power of understanding, the power of vocabulary and power conceptions. Now, those power conceptions in your dictionary of power, they not only have power in and of themselves, but the more you add them, they start building a conception of you. So
And they
I
evolve.
am. Exactly. And you evolve as a result of them. Exactly, Cheryl.
Mhm.
Exactly. But they build your self-conception, right? So when I think I am, I am my list of aspirations. I am my list of power conceptions. Yeah. So this is very, 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 very powerful. Yes. Yeah. So sleight of mouth. Yes. I think sleight of mind, sleight of heart, sleight of soul, all of it all comes together, right? And it's such a tweak, a little tiny tweak between having a conception that is off and one that is powerful. Yeah. So when we understand this, that it takes very little to reassociate our labeling. Take unknown and moreness, my favorite example. The unknown, it's connected to fear and stress and danger, but moreness it's connected with excitement, benefit, bonus, value, right? It's the same thing, really. Both, we don't know what we're going to get, but one, I have a positive anticipation, one, I have a negative anticipation. All I did was change the label. So I've got a file on my computer that was filed unknown, or in my mind. That's not a fun file. When I changed it, that same label, I just relabeled the file, same stuff inside it. But now suddenly it's all exciting. Yeah. Moreness. Yeah. This is really, really, really powerful. Ramsey says each person, i.e. is a conglomerate of 40 billion cells, each charged with between 0.07 and 0.02 volts, imagining directing all this energy towards a single goal. Exactly. This is part of having conception. Your thoughts start to work together. Yes, all of these ideas you end up with having a cohesiveness. And this is, to me, the value that I bring. There's a profound cohesiveness to this, to what I do, because that cohesiveness comes from a cohesive vocabulary. And when you have a cohesive vocabulary that's power conceptions, man, you now get to utilize all of this power that you are. Right, Cheryl?
Absolutely.
I don't want to
I agree
forget
100.
one aspiration that was thrown out there. One word from Magical Bina. So Bina said her aspirations, you only put one word down, receptivity, right? I don't want to let that go. This is a very, very, very powerful, incredible aspiration to be receptive. Because what does this mean? Cheryl, what do you think it means? You know already, but share with us what you feel receptivity means and how Bina is a good exemplification of receptivity.
You put me on the spot.
Yeah, I put you on the
Yes, you
spot. Take your
have.
time, take your time, take your time. So what does receptivity mean to you?
To be able to absorb and shift away from like a general perception and be able to look
Yes,
at things from all angles and be able to,
yes,
really analyze and investigate what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're believing,
exactly,
or what
exactly.
others are telling you, so to speak.
Exactly. And to be open. And yes, Janet. Brilliant. Hello, Janet. Hello, Janet. Wow, it's almost time already. All right. So I'm going to wrap this up here with receptivity. Wonderful, Janet. I'm glad you're here. So this concept of receptivity, it
Oh, I
is
thought
to
you said
say,
perceptivity. I'm sorry.
no.
Receptivity.
Yeah, receptivity. Oh, no
Oh,
wonder you were a bit stuck. Yeah, perceptivity. That's a tricky word. Receptivity. Yeah, but you got halfway there.
receptivity, completely
Yeah,
different.
yeah, yeah,
Sorry,
yeah, yeah,
Bina.
yeah. Oh, that's all right. So to be receptive in this capital R receptivity, it means we take a new concept and we say, what you're saying, that concept, this idea, these thoughts, yeah, I don't know. That's how we normally go. It sounds a bit
I
weird to
don't
me.
think
I'm
so. I
not,
don't agree with
yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. Right. But the receptivity says, okay, I'm going to say, because I know Cheryl and I know Janet and I know Bina and I know Ramsey, I know Gabriel, I know Norma. So what they share with me, and Lindsay, right, their concepts that they share with me, I'm going to assume as a starting point that this idea, this concept, whatever they're sharing, the story makes sense. Capital M, capital S makes sense. I'm starting with this. Like when the alien spaceship crashes, right? And we've got to reverse engineer, we want to get this thing working. We assume that technology makes sense. I have no clue. I look at this technology, oh, what the hell? This stuff just looks like gobbledygook to me. It looks like, electrical spaghetti, whatever. I have no clue what it is, but I assume it makes sense because I know it has to make sense because, well, the spaceship was flying, right? So I can reverse engineer from that. Now, why don't we do this with what people say? I know you're a good person, Cheryl, Janet. I know you guys are a wonderfully good person. You have good intents. If you share something with me and I don't get it, this is not because your concept is necessarily flawed. Well, it might be, but it's likely be simply because of communication, right? So now I say, I'm going to assume it makes sense. And then I say, since I've taken this for granted that it makes sense, I'm open to seeing all of the sense that's there. I may even see sense that's more than you intended because I'm open to it. Because if there's something that it's a new concept that you're bringing to me, I have to be open because newness is by default not automatically going to make sense to me because it's new, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes newness just because it's new doesn't make sense. But when I'm receptive, I'm open to that. And then I look for how it makes sense. And now my brain is employed. It starts sparking and jumping and all of this starts connecting. And suddenly I say, oh, yes, I get it. Wonderful. Yes, fantastic. Janet, yes, I get it. This is how so wonderful, wonderful. So receptivity is this profound openness, but there's more. And it's particularly with Bina, it's in the Sophie story. It's also saying, I'm receptive. I'm open to things coming into me. However, I'm going to choose to take on. Receptivity doesn't mean I'm being influenced, right? It's not the other side of influential, right? The reversed, right? So when I'm receptive, I choose what I take on. I'm not automatically influenced because I'm paying attention. I'm considering. So being receptive is also being profoundly considerate, as in I consider, I think through, I look at it from all angles. I perspective shift. I think it through to the end.
Perspective shift. That's the gift.
Exactly.
To
Exactly.
receive it,
Exactly.
as it's offered, but then also
Exactly.
offer back a shift
Exactly.
of perspective.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what receptivity is. I'm open to looking at it from all angles, right? Because perspective shifting is, for us, it's perspective shifting to multiple perspectives. So we look at it from all angles. So this is a profound, profound concept. And in our chat here, where we're talking about vocabulary and power conceptions, receptivity is huge, is huge, is huge. Any thoughts, Janet, before we end here? We're just going to end now. Any thoughts, any kind, Janet?
My cherry tree is blooming big and wide. I wish you could see it out my window.
Wow. Wow. Now there's a nice thought to end the day on, the talk on. All right. Brilliant. Brilliant. I love this. All right. Well, you have to show us the pictures, Janet. That's all. That's all.
Okay, so I will say my
Yeah.
goodbyes as well.
Yes. You're welcome to stay, Cheryl. We're going to be doing capital R reading with Janet. I'm not sure what we're going
Isn't
to be
that
reading.
wonderful?
Yeah.
I
You're
love
more
you
than
for
welcome
it,
to stay.
but no, I got to get back to work. This was my lunch
Okay.
break.
Oh, fantastic. I'm so
Cheryl,
pleased you
hi.
came, Cheryl. I'm so
Janet.
pleased you
Hi,
came.
Janet.
Yes,
Nice to meet you, dear.
And I'm pleased that you get to meet Janet, which just, magical, special people. So as you can see and know, so wonderful, wonderful. I love it.
Absolutely. She's an
Yeah,
artist.
yeah.
Look, I got my eisel behind me.
Yes,
you
and
do?
she's an art teacher as well.
Oh, look,
Yeah.
what are you painting?
I work with pastels mostly, but
Oh,
yeah, I just bought some oils. So
oh, really?
yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do with them just yet.
I just quick thing is I got these water-based oils by Winsor Newton. And
Okay.
they're really great because I like pastels too. And so you can thin these down with water. You should try them.
Wonderful.
Say that again for me. Windsor.
Winsor Newton is the name of the company.
Okay.
WIN